Hit record. This is the Left in the Forgotten Borough podcast. I'm Andrew Savage,
I'm Nancy Richards.
and we're back from vacation.
Yes,
Um,
we are. Our timing is impeccable, I have to
yes,
say.
yeah. For those of you who don't know, we were on vacation last week in Puerto Vallarta, Mexico. And Mexico has been in the news over the last day or so because of an US-backed intelligence operation which took out a uh, drug cartel leader. And now the cartels have engaged in violence. They have been destroying property. The State Department has issued an order for Americans who are there to shelter in place. So we're thinking of the people there for sure.
So we have some friends that are living there, and I spoke with them this morning to see how things are. And definitely, it's a lot calmer. There are people are still pretty much staying indoors, but the schools are still closed. But people are going out somewhat. The fires are out. There's been no destruction today of property. Where our friends live, there was a car set on fire, so it blocked. It seems that the cartel was blocking entrances into the cities. So where my friends live was an entrance to Puerto Vallarta. They live in Guanajuato, which is kind of like a half hour out of Puerto Vallarta, and you could see um, they where they kind of set kind of a few stores on fire. They set well, not they didn't set Costco on fire, but they set cars on fire in Costco. But there were no people injured in this attack. They really kind of went after the military. But the cartel, one of the things that was mentioned was the reason they wanted people in place is that the cartel wasn't targeting Americans or Mexicans living or Canadians. There's a lot of Canadians that live in that area. Um, but they didn't care about collateral damage. So if you got in the way, but they were really going after the Mexican government as a retaliation for this military invasion. So one of the reasons there was some pressure by the Trump administration to go after this cartel because they were producing fentanyl. But the Mexican government was a little reluctant because one of their experiences is the last time they took out a cartel leader, there's usually fighting
Between,
over leadership, and
yeah,
that kind of leads to a lot more violence. So that's kind of the main concern now. Like, is there going to be more violence in kind of a power struggle now for leadership? Kind of like you think about how the mob works here, when they take out, a mob boss, then, you see a lot of kind of,
well,
people
the jockeying for
jockeying for
position.
power.
Yeah, so we're
Um,
thinking of the people in Puerto Vallarta. We had a fabulous time apart from
it,
all of this last week, and we never had any indication that
it was
anything was even
dangerous. I felt
happening. Yeah,
safe.
me too.
I I always felt safe. I was actually considering looking at as a place to retire there as well. It's affordable and lovely. Modern, and it was the last thing that I was thinking about. And so sad to hear that and hope for the best.
And then, we came back here to Snowpocalypse Part Two, and so there's that. But we have really terrific guests for you today. So we have Christine Johnson and Sally Jones from the Staten Island for the People Coalition, also very active members of the Staten Island Action Coalition. So welcome to the podcast.
Oh, it's a pleasure to be here with
And
you.
peace action too. Yes.
Absolutely.
Staten Island peace action.
And so, one of the reasons why we wanted to have you guys on to talk to us today is because a new No Kings March has been scheduled for March 28th. The last one in October was extremely successful here on Staten Island. We had a lot of people come out. I heard estimates as high as 2,000 or 3,000 people actually showed up. And so, what is going to be the focus this time around? We were talking about before we came on, there's so much coming at us that, and by design, flood the zone with shit every day. That was what they said. And so, uh, what is the focus here? No Kings implies, we're standing up against dictatorship and authoritarianism and abuse of power. But is there a specific focus, or is it just the overall fuckery of this guy in this administration?
I'm good with the overall thuggery. Sally, I would think that there's so much to talk about, what's coming from, this administration that we would be here, for a week and a half if we just made a list and recognizing just the methods and the way this Trump administration is functioning by using democracy to kill democracy.
Yeah.
This is something that really needs to be, continued to focus on and focus and focus. And I think, we can certainly talk about this, but I do want to make clear, we chatted a little bit beforehand, the Staten Island for the People Coalition was created when Sally and Eileen Bardell from Peace Action recognized the need for everybody to work in a concerted way. So they convened a meeting, they sent out the word to any of the organizations they knew that were kind of looking to push back on the onslaught, and they convened a meeting. And I won't stop giving them props, and like it was just the genius thing to do because we were all working in our own lanes, our own houses, our own whatevers, and really realizing that when we work together is the better way to go. So all kudos to Patsy for bringing us together because the coalition has been very successful. And it's the coalition that's going to be hosting as a group, all the different groups joining together to host the official No Kings on Staten Island. And we're very happy that we've been able to kind of reformulate it that way because we have tremendous buy-in, tremendous support, great talent, great outreach, and everybody is focused, focused, focused.
Mention the date again.
March 28th.
There we go. Okay, we'll mention
And it
that a
should
lot.
be in the 1 to 3 o'clock, step off 1 to 3. And it'll be, somewhat we're focusing on the Victory Boulevard route, but we're looking to see if maybe we could jazz it up a little bit. So stay tuned and maybe you'll learn a little bit more about that in the next couple of days.
Great.
And as far as No Kings, one of the we talked before we came on, one of the criticisms that I heard of No Kings, at least in October, was that if we look at the demographics of those who were participating, very old and very white. Not, and so and basically, I was there. I was there. We had people of different age groups, but I noticed a diversity, but and I don't know if this is more of a Jesse Waters Fox News trolley criticism or if this is, something that's real. But first of all, did you find that there was a lack of diversity? And second, if you did, are there efforts being made to diversify the participation of the marchers?
Yeah, maybe I'll respond to that. I I think it's true that if you look at the protests around the country, they tend to be, maybe a little older, maybe a little whiter. And one of the issues is that the people who are being targeted are not older and whiter, and the privilege of that is driving some of that. I think also that younger people are doing a lot of things, and I just came from a student peace conference where student organizers in campuses around New York State are doing their things in their campuses. At Wagner College had a walkout. So young people tend to organize themselves in their way. And so we need to support and partner and encourage, but we don't want people to feel afraid. We want to have a safe march and rally and encourage everybody to come out. And this island has changed quite a bit. And we should be reflecting the diversity of our island when we have protests. So there's a lot of work to do to make that happen.
Yeah, and to that point, there were two walkouts locally, Susan Wagner High School and Port Richmond High School. And we've heard from the students, and they're looking to kind of get some help with coordinating around this event. I know there was the high school walkout up at 26 Federal Plaza. So, and I think Sally's right. I mean, that's where they're in their school and that's how they're talking and that's their community. So they're organizing themselves. but they're also recognizing there's a wider community and they want to be part of that. And we very much want them to be part of it too. And one little side point to make, when the first March, June, No Kings, Silent Action Coalition crew, we went to that march. And, it's hard to disagree that the energies and the efforts and the mood and the tempo and everything going on in a big Manhattan march is exciting and wonderful. When the June March came along, we kind of talked among ourselves and we said, we really need to focus on our island, our community with our neighbors. And that has really played out very well. So the second March was stronger than the first. And we believe strongly that the third March is going to be stronger than the rest. And we kind of like are re-identifying, Staten Island Strong needs to come out. We need to be with our neighbors and we need to stand up with our neighbors. And that's why there's such a strong effort from so many different groups kind of joining with the coalition to be sponsors or co-sponsors. And that's how we're starting to diversify. Sally, I think you'd probably agree with all the people that are on the weekly meetings to organize No Kings, it's a fairly diverse group of groups, organizations, and they each have their outreach to do. So everybody is looking to maximize, 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 and put the word out as wide as possible.
Yeah.
Can you mention the groups that are coming to these coalition meetings that are involved?
One of the really important groups is New York 11 Healthcare for All. They had been doing a lot of things last year, different places, and within that coalition, there's some unions and who come together around all of the healthcare cutbacks that have happened, with the big beautiful bill, and then the following legislation. So they have been a real key part of that coalition. Also, there's the Social Justice Committee of the Unitarian Church of Staten Island has been doing a lot of work supporting immigrants and what they've been up against. They're a really important part of the coalition. The Staten Island Action Coalition, I know Chris I've been impressed just watching them. This is a group of mostly women, but not all women, who they have so many skills and they just like appeared out of like a powerhouse.
Yeah.
By the way, I had 3 or 4 people separately and independently say that they beeped when they saw the Epstein cover-up visibility brigade, and so and they asked me if I was there. I was like, no, I was on vacation, but I 4 people separately and independently beeped as they drove by that. So those are really an effective tool, a really effective form
Yeah.
of communication to get the word out.
Yeah, I mean, they've
I
just been
follow
an inspiration to everybody.
I follow this guy, Staten Island Chef, and he has a pretty big following on Staten Island. And I was pleasantly surprised to see that he posted that overhang on Woolly Avenue, over there, and that got a big. So that was another audience that saw what was happening. So I thought that was good.
Well,
Yeah,
for
so, yeah,
SciAc, I think the thing that we really recognize is visibility. So obviously, the visibility brigade is, mostly at the overpass, and that was started, I think, in Paramus, New Jersey. And there are visibility brigades. If you go onto their website, your mind will be blown. The numbers of visibility brigades across the nation, I've lost count. There were like 26 pages in lists, when I looked weeks and weeks and weeks ago. Because what SciAc, I think, is really believing in is that we need to be visible. We need to be, quote, in the streets, whatever that means. So visibility brigades, Malleotakis Mondays, leafleting wherever we can be. We're doing some like separate visibility brigades in certain areas, not at an overpass. We have a couple of different projects that we're looking to move out right now. So, signage, we usually wear our sandwich board signage, and we're moving out as we do leafleting. We're looking to get into different neighborhoods all the time. But I think folks need to know that what they're thinking about, worried about, concerned about, they are not alone. And when they see us out there on Victory Boulevard at an overpass, handing out leaflets at the ferry, Pazzi's been doing that for 1,000 years. then it gives them encouragement and they feel a sense of solidarity. And I think the more that we do that, the bigger it grows. So that's why we're believing that we need to have our No Kings on Staten Island. We need to be a part of that No Kings so that more people feel more encouraged to know that they are not alone in their worries and their concerns, and they feel supported by all the different groups. And that's what's really been so positive.
I
Yeah,
think
and Cassie kind
that's
of brings some of the international issues to that. So they're all connected. You know, what's happening to immigrants here is connected to what happened to in Puerto Vallarta. It's connected to what's happening in Cuba and Iran and Venezuela, all over the world. So we try to bring our message is no war, no ice.
Mhm.
a good message. I would take.
And I think
I
folks need to, we have to worry, folks, too many folks, and we all know folks that, they just kind of want to stay in their bubble a little bit, and I think that the more visible we are, the more possibilities we have of bursting some of those bubbles that you might think that you're not impacted by the negatives that we see coming from this administration. You don't have to look too far or too deep to find how they're creeping up, creeping up, creeping up, and everybody is really being hurt or impacted, whether institutions, organizations, healthcare providers are having to diminish because of all the cuts. Health research is going to be impacting people, what they're doing with the trans communities and the pressure tactics they're using with our universities and our hospitals. It resonates with folks. It resonates. As I said, they're almost like our best calling card to the reason why you have to get out in the streets and push back, because what this administration is doing on a daily grind every day in more ways than anybody can count are apparent to people. So more folks are kind of coming out of their safe spaces, out of their safe bubbles.
Well, this administration kind of has been normalizing, their behavior, and what they say is the truth, and a lot of their lies they say is the truth. And living on Staten Island, a lot of people who support Trump, that tends to be the dominant voice in the media. And it's one of the main reasons why Andrew and I started our podcast, because there is a significant amount of people on this island who think differently. And there are a lot more different groups on this island than the stereotypical ones that the media portrays. So I think it's great that when people see what, like Malitakas Mondays, like just standing in front across from our office every week. I, you haven't seen that. Like occasionally we would go out and protest an issue for a congressperson, but this is there every Monday, which I think also puts pressure, in regards to her election, in regards to the issues, and giving people a voice. And I do see these silent thank yous, like thank you for, standing out there, for doing that. And then also one of the things with Staten Island Action Coalition is that page that you have where you give people options that if they can't get out, or you kind of, it's a way of working into activism. Like if like if you just want to make a phone call, here's the number. If you want to show up and do visibility, this is where we are. If you want to come on Mondays, this is where we are. So
Yeah.
it gives people options.
Well, that's been our MO. It really is. Everybody can do something because everybody has to stop doing nothing. And it's not so much whether you voted for that gentleman or you didn't. We really try to focus on issues, because issues, that's where we live. We live when all of a sudden our healthcare premiums go up, groceries go up, gas goes up, whatever it might be. And we want to
Our
talk about the
neighbors are
focus
being
on,
detained.
say it again?
So our neighbors are being detained. So
Oh, yeah, it's just there's just endless ways that you can go. And to your point, that was really what SIAC was always looking to do. You can't do everything, but you could probably do something. And we give people different options of what they might be able to do from the privacy of their own home, or standing out on the street, or walking in a march. Whatever it is, there's something that everybody can do, and it all adds up and creates, I think, the momentum that we really have, and we're really seeing evidence of on a regular basis.
Yeah,
and
and
March
people
28th.
are, I was going to say, people are personally affected now. I mean, I was a young college student during the Vietnam War, and people were personally affected because as soon as they graduated, or if they weren't going to school, they were drafted. They were personally affected, and they came out. in huge more numbers. Now we see like teachers from Port Richmond High School, they're personally affected because their wonderful students are being detained, and it hits you right here. I think it's so interesting, our psychology, how when it is a person that you can relate to, it's like Layla Hagassi went on the global Samud flotilla to try
Yeah.
to bring humanitarian aid to Gaza. A lot of people in Staten Island take yoga lessons from Layla, and they were concerned about her safety and followed her. And so you could see how when you can connect to a person, how it changes you. It affects your brain differently. You want to be there for them. I think that we're being personally affected. And I'm not really, it's like ice watch, this whole thing about looking for ice in neighborhoods. I never look at cars. I don't know what one car versus another car looks like. But there's people now who are checking to see who's in their neighborhood, who's parked, um, if they have some sort of, you know, jackets on that says police, and they're not really, NYPD, and if their windows are blacked out and they're really paying attention. Some people are really good at that, and that's great because they're warning their neighbors that ICE is in the neighborhood. So, and they feel personally affected, and some of them are not coming out, may not be coming out to may be afraid to come out to something like No Kings 3 or Malitakas Mondays, but they're there and they're watching, and they're personally affected. And we're all personally affected, really, because we all know somebody who's,
Yeah.
whose
Well,
family's affected.
what's the general thinking, that we have to be hit with something 7 times before it finally resonates, and we kind of take that in? Well, that's kind of part of the thinking too. And I can't help but drag out the old chestnut from Margaret Mead. Never doubt that a small group of thoughtful, committed citizens can change the world. Indeed, it's the only thing that ever has. So that just really undergirds, I think, everything that all our combined groups are looking to do. We are all those individuals kind of coming together with the same goal in mind.
Yeah.
And so,
Absolutely.
yeah, and so what has been the issue as it relates to things that are driving people out? I know that the midterm message is starting to take shape. Rokana coined the term the Epstein class that's been used now by John Ossoff, and it really comes to symbolize, this powerful elite who's doing horrible, who do horrible things and are seemingly unaccountable, at least here in the United States. Um, and but while they're doing that, your prices are going up, your premiums are going up, life has become more expensive across the board. When they promised that they would improve the material conditions of people living in this country, and they've not done so, they failed. And you have our own Congresswoman can't even say that Ghislaine Maxwell shouldn't receive clemency. And so, what has been the issue that you have seen people come out most for? Because, there's plenty to choose from, but what are the things that you are hearing most from people as to what inspires them to do whatever it is they're doing, coming to a
I'm
march,
active.
or, yeah, or get active in some way?
I would say just for the last year, it's definitely been ICE and its overreach, because that affects communities. And they see what's happened in Chicago, LA, and especially Minneapolis, and thinking if these people could come out in minus 20 degrees weather or something, we can come out in 20 degrees weather. It's like, I I think when we do flyering at the ferry every other week on Wednesday, when we do it on several different issues, but when we do it on ice, you can see there's like people are affected, and they take the flyers like we don't have enough flyers to give out. So I think what ice has done, has mobilized the American people. You know, I I think there's a lot of issues going on. And the other thing is healthcare. I think people are very, very concerned about their healthcare. That is also a personal issue that affects all of Staten Island almost, in some one way or another.
Yeah, and to Sally's point, I mean, the bywords that SIAC is really like latched onto is educate, activate, mobilize. So all the activities that we do are geared to like bring those three items forward and get people to, again, step up and speak out. And that when they're doing that, they're realizing that they can look at what's happening with our government. Like we go back to checks and balances. We believe in three branches of government, and it's absolutely apparent that the imperial presidency has been in full gear, from day one of this particular administration. And there's always the pushback. I mean, in the first administration, people were like floating back and forth between taking him seriously and taking him literally. Well, I think we've gotten over that. And basically, the man speaks whatever it is he wants to speak, and it needs to be taken seriously. I think a lot of us were taking him seriously back in Trump 1, but now we're taking him deadly seriously because he has stepped up his capacities and his abilities
Well,
to
he's
do
gotten, and
that.
there's zero guardrails this time around. There's nobody who is even remotely gives a shit about any preserving any of the institutions that we have or the constitutional order. I mean, you had the FBI director going to the Olympics and drinking beer with the athletes there when he's
I was pissed
basically
when I
in.
saw that.
Yeah, and he's basically, involved in the biggest cover-up of the biggest child sexual predator ring that there ever was. And so there's really no uh, guardrails at all. And so people now see this for what it is more, I think, more authentically than the first time around. There's no John Kelly there to restrain him. There's no Reince Priebus. There's no Mattis. There's no none of these people are there to say, no, that's crazy. Don't do that.
Yeah,
I'm
so we're all
curious.
happy when
Yeah.
the Supreme Court stepped up the other day and actually two justices realized, that they had some, personal scruples and they really had to rely on their own understanding of the legal system. And we got pushback. And what did we see? It was so embarrassing to hear the President of the United States speaking the way he did about, two justices with such, crass language. And that doesn't appeal to anyone, even if you voted for the gentleman. That doesn't really appeal to anybody to speak that way about justices of the Supreme Court. So, we have more than a glimmer of hope when we see, that kind of those kind of judgments coming out of the Supreme Court, because at this point, Congress has totally like just thrown over. They don't have to worry about a darn thing. They have no responsibilities to do anything, and they've given it up totally. And we've really been relying on the courts. The courts have been the only, point of light that's really given us some ways to fight back and push back against the things that are impacting, our daily living. And we see that on a regular basis. And Andrew, to your point, I mean, I think everybody's got to focus on the midterms. I mean, we have to be able to, if Congress is not going to work for us the way Congress is supposed to work for us, then we're just going to have to shake up Congress. And everybody takes strong responsibility in wanting to get out the vote and register voters. That's another area that SIAC is looking to be very involved in, so that people take responsibility for what happens in 2026 and has to have oversight to make sure that we do have fair elections. We have fair elections. This entire nonsense about looking to just all of a sudden abolish states' rights and take over nationalized elections is absolutely insane. And the folks from state to state to state, I mean, they're not accepting of this, and we're hoping that there's going to be an adherence to that part of the Constitution. So many other parts of the Constitution get thrown to the winds. But we have to trust and believe and push out that we have to maintain, the sacredness of the vote in the 50 states of this country. And that's the way the election has to be and has to be held. So everybody's got eyes on that prize, and that's a big focus of our attention.
Also, too, that's why I think it's important to be at Nicole's office every week to remind her that, you know, they are Section 1 of the Constitution. You know, when we say equal branches, technically it's supposed to be Congress that has the most power, not the executive branch. And to remind her that she's not a rubber stamp for Donald Trump, she's a rubber stamp for us. And there are issues that, you know, she's an election denier. And
Mhm.
that's very concerning for me in regards to that. Um, and we talk about democracy, and she is perpetuating this lie that the 2020 election was rigged and giving out false information. And she voted against the election the night, but she's okay with her results.
Mhm.
Um, and
Funny the
so
way.
I think so every week, I think it's important to be in front of her office and to remind her that we have her on, on blast, and, we're not falling for her, for her nonsense, and we know what's going on. And we're calling her on it.
Well, continuing to push
So,
out the quote rigged election of 2020 becomes the predicate for that elections are unfair, elections are rigged, so therefore yada 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 yada. But we're not buying that because it's been proven, proven, proven. If I had a nickel for every time it's been proven, I'd be a rich woman that we have fair and safe elections, and that's what we have to continue to push for. So voting rights are being suppressed. We're seeing all those activities that are attempting to do that. We have to push back
she's
against
pushing the
that.
SAVE Act.
Mhm.
She's supporting the SAVE Act. And I think it's also important to remind people what the SAVE Act really does. Um, it's not about making the elections safer. It's about, you know, this whole thing about married women in regards to, you know, it's more voter suppression.
Mhm.
Um, and we need to remind people what this act really does.
Well,
If
yeah, well, absolutely. I mean, it's not about voter ID. That's often presented as well. It's a common sense thing. But my thing is, I have no problem with voter ID, but you have to provide it. They have to provide a specific ID for this, not having to pay $200 for a passport or $100 for a real ID, because at that point it's a poll tax. That's what it is.
Yeah.
Yeah.
It is a poll tax, and so if you want to have voter ID, fine, provide it. That should be part of any deal that happens. But that's a law that's going to, as far as I can tell, die in the Senate. But it's still going
but
to.
our congressperson
Oh,
supports this act.
oh,
Yeah.
she does. Well, she does, and then in the next breath, she'll cry about how she's being redistricted out, and that that she's the victim, and of unfair tactics. Well, you didn't think we would actually push back. You didn't think we would just, because Democrats in the past have done that. We've just sort of rolled over and said, well, they're going to do what they're going to do,
Yeah.
but no, not this time. And
Yeah.
so she'll cry about voter ID, but then she'll say voter ID is necessary and everything, and then she'll cry about the fact that she's being redistricted out, and so she can honestly just kind of cry me a river. But on the point of elections, um, is the Staten Island Action Coalition going to when the midterms get closer? Are we going to see groups like the Staten Island Action Coalition and others? Are we going to see a lot of people serve as poll watchers? Because I'm really concerned that there's going to be some kind of operation to intimidate voters, and so we need people to be out there documenting everything. Again, not engaging, not physically confronting, but engaging. And I was just reading an article before we came on Politico that talked about the Democratic attorneys general who are planning and gaming out every scenario for when they say, this is not a real election, or this was fake, or this was rigged.
Well, we haven't talked about that specifically, but we have, some of our groups are 501(c)(3)s. They can't engage directly in campaigns, but they can do voter registration and they can do voter turnout type of things. So we get I think there's a range of activities that, depending on the group in the Staten Island for the People Coalition and Staten Island Action Coalition and Peace Action and the New York 11 and all some are churches, like they all have their different requirements. So they'll, but together we can do voter registration, voter turnout. We can do all those things. So we can talk about, together about poll watching, what that means. I don't know at this point, but I wanted to mention that this is the 250th anniversary of the country,
Yeah.
1776. And what an opportunity to educate people about Article 1 or about freedom of speech or about this. I got an email from a neighbor who said, well, what is this, this coalition going to do around the 250th anniversary? And he was suggesting, like have these big posters or something with the Constitution on it or something like that. We really haven't talked about that, but um, there's going to be a lot of hoopla, right? Um,
Mhm.
but what is our hoopla going to be, and what can we do to educate people? Because a lot of what we talk about amongst ourselves who listen to news and all that is not what regular people who are struggling, going to work with their children, with all kinds of crisis in their own lives. They don't have time to watch podcasts. They don't have time to do that. They're just, trying to survive. So we we need to think about that because they're the people, that we want to come out and vote. What um there's so many people who aren't registered, or if they're registered or don't come out, but how do we really engage regular people in a way, not just talking to ourselves? That's what we have to think about.
Right, but
But
to
the
your point, I mean,
250th anniversary may be an opportunity for us.
yeah, I think I got something there, Sally. And poll watching did come up in a conversation. I honestly, it was either with SIAC or it was with Unitarian Social Justice, recognizing that it might be something for folks to kind of get engaged in. So it's just kind of floating to the surface with some of the groups recognizing the value of that. So it's there. We're not home yet with really like drilling that into what our functions are going to be and our activities are going to be, but it is kind of like it's on the radar.
Yeah, and I
It's on
think,
the radar.
and I actually think one of the ways we can also, after the election, because what I think is going to happen is he's going to try and pressure local election boards not to certify elections.
Mhm.
Well,
And so I think we should absolutely have a presence at the when those local election boards meet, just to show that we believe in free and fair elections.
Mhm.
absolutely. And it's like we get in touch with, the Board of Elections. There are people that work at the Board of Elections that I know we can contact. I'm just thinking, Andrew, when you said that, I'm thinking when people show up at their polling booths, um, misinformation, whereas people might think they need a certain ID, they might get turned away
Hmm.
because they're thinking that you know, someone told them, and then they're like, oh, I didn't know that. So like being present at in certain areas of the borough, like with just like little cards, like, we have the Know Your Rights kind of just little information of what you do and do not have to have when you're showing up at your polling booth. Just so people can say, no, you're wrong. I'm entitled to be here.
Yeah,
So,
absolutely. And in New York, my hope is that the local and state and local authorities will ultimately step in here. That's one of the things that the Democratic Attorney Generals are
Mhm.
considering. But I think groups like the ones that we've been discussing today are really going to be important just to ensure that if there is this ongoing intimidation effort for people trying to vote, that we have some documentation of it, that we have some record of it. So this way, this Justice Department won't pursue or prosecute anybody who does that, but the state and local authorities can.
Mhm.
And so we need to have those that evidence there and that record there.
Mhm.
Absolutely.
Yeah.
Stuff to
Well,
think about. So like that's the next thing after March 28th, for the um for the rally. In regards to March 28th, what kind of signs, posters you think people will be focusing on for visibility as when they're marching?
well, there's a media committee within the organizers of the Doe Kings, and they and they are working like little eager beavers right now, coming up with creative signage and perhaps more than just signage, little tiny installations of one kind or another. I know there's at least two of our members of the media committee who are really focused on really branching out and bringing in the creatives of Staten Island, to have some signage that is really eye-catching, eye-appealing, and unavoidable. So there's a lot of that going on, and people are eagerly working in that direction. Individuals can choose to do whatever they want to do, but the folks who are organizing the march itself are looking to really break out this march to be highly visible and strong on messaging.
Yeah. Also, we're asking groups to co-sponsor or sponsor the march too and bring their banner in their groups. So we have a little sponsorship form that people can use if you are part of any kind of group that aligns with No Kings 3. We suggest bring a little contingent, bring your banner. And that will show if enough groups do it, that will show the breadth of our coalition.
I think that's a good idea. So, um, yeah, like for example, like us, we don't have a banner, but I know sometimes when we've been there, like I've put like on our sign left in the Forgotten Borough, um, and just kind of we represent our little two coalition, Andrew. So,
Yeah, well, that would be great. And how do you get into the podcast? Like how do you do it? But just if you do decide to make a banner, um, I would make like a 4 foot or a 6 foot banner because you're going to probably walk along a sidewalk that's not really wide. So if you have a 12 foot banner, it might be a little hard. Just warning
okay, good to
you.
know.
Yeah,
So they're
we
planning
usually
to still go down Victory, or you said that was kind of still in the works?
That's
It'll
the
be
prime
somewhere
That's
there,
the
but we don't know.
primary route, but we may be looking to just like tweak it up a little bit. So there's that. But yeah, yeah, pretty much. So we're big into self-promotion. We don't want you to necessarily self-promote if you're a car wash. No. But your organization, absolutely, whatever your belief system is, absolutely promotion. That's where the literal visibility of this is. It's bodies are great, but visible signs that really message in a stronger way is what we're really asking folks to do. And as I said, the committees are really working tirelessly on that to be as eye-catching and eye-appealing as possible.
Well, I thought the last March, the great thing were the blow up,
with the costumes, yeah,
the
the
costumes. I
unicorns,
thought they were great.
the unicorns and the dinosaurs and
Frogs.
stuff, yeah, and the
Yeah.
frogs. Those were good. Well, I think that sustained peaceful protest and pushback
I've read that again.
is key because a lot of times we get so bogged down in all the stuff they throw at us, but I think one of the things that I read about recently that was really important is that the Department of Education, the Federal Department of Education, and the Department of Justice recently backed off of their demand of public schools to completely eliminate DEI. Because I think you just have to tire them out. You just have to show that you are going to push back, that you're not going to be bullied or pushed around. And so the Federal Department of Education and the Department of Justice, both led by, stellar people, are going to, or they've backed down. They've backed down. They've no longer fighting this for this mandate in court. The people of Minneapolis are really also a really good example of this, just sustained peaceful protest over time. Now, of course, they had some really terrible things happen as far as their own people getting shot and killed. But
But it was evident that it was, the ICE agents who were the cause, the root cause of what was going on, not the protesters. Like they used to be able to, what was it, Portland? They were like, oh, the Antifa and it was funny, people like paid protesters. And one of the things I always do is I go, I wasn't paid, you know, and I am thinking of a sign going, not paid. So we'll march for free. So.
well, I always say if they were paying people, then they owe me retro because I've been doing this for many years and I haven't received a dime. And but just that sustained pushback, peaceful demonstrations, legal challenges, those are all really important. And they do cave. They do cave. I know they don't make a big deal of when they cave. Trump just released the funds actually for the Gateway Tunnel project after, weeks of holding it up. And so he caved, he tacoed the way that he normally does when you push back and when you get in his face a little bit.
And we didn't even have to name a building after him. Wasn't that pretty
No,
cool?
yeah,
Oh, that's right.
we didn't. And even though he tried to browbeat Chuck Schumer into doing that in a private meeting.
He's like
Um,
our own little Saddam Hussein, with his little statues and building names and
He's not as stylish. The man wears a full face of makeup and wears diapers and everything else. And so like ugh, he's like Timu Saddam Hussein. But
well, you have that banner hung at the Justice Department,
yes,
um, which
yeah.
is clear evidence that, they're not independent. They work for
Yeah.
him.
Well, of course they
So,
work for him. I mean, but even that they can't do right. I mean, they can't even do that right. Their cases against most of the political enemies of the president have collapsed. I mean, there's no case at all against Jim Comey or Tish James or the six members of Congress who warned against disobeying illegal orders. That collapsed. The only one they could find to pursue that was Judge Box of Wine, Janine Pirro, and nothing. So it's sort of like like, oh, I'm shaking in my boots. Pam Bondi's coming after me. Like,
But the
please.
reconciliation of understanding like how our tax dollars are being spent,
Yeah.
to support this government that's doing nothing else than just trying to like dismantle itself and take away people's rights and benefits.
Well,
And when
absolutely.
folks can start to like, connect the dots in those kind of ways that your taxpayer dollars are going to fund things that are here to really dismantle you and your government. And I think more and more people are starting to like connect those dots and see that that's exactly happening. They've gotten too far to people's edges and their personal lives, as Sally made the point earlier. People are feeling this personally. They can't just assume it's happening to the other guy, the other gal. It's not happening to me. It's happening to my neighbors, the other point Sally made. But people are also feeling the pinch themselves, either because their rights are being pinched, or the discretionary dollars are being pinched, or their children's educations are being pinched, or their ability to live free in this country is being pinched. And they've gone too far on so many levels, keep thinking they can't go any further, but they're very creative in that department. And they certainly will continue to push out and push out and push out. As long as they can continue to diminish people's lives and impoverish people so
Mhm.
that you don't have the wherewithal to stand up because you're exhausted or because you literally financially are so strapped that you can't think beyond how am I paying all my bills this week, this month.
Yeah.
And that's all part of, I think, the game. That's all part of the play.
Yeah, and notice how they go after who they think is vulnerable. You
Mhm.
know, the Palestinian activists, the college students and the campuses, um, back
Journalists of color.
journalists of color, just racism, just across the board, the anti-LGBT, um, plus, the attacks on trans people. They're going after everybody, but what they don't realize is that just like we're all connected one way or another to all of these vulnerable groups, and we're all vulnerable, really. So um, I think they're making a mistake. We're also learning from people who've written books, who come on podcasts, who talk on TV about what happens in other countries that have gone down the fascist authoritarian path, and how what has been successful in fighting back. So we're learning from people around the world, how do we fight back? We're learning from, you know, the fact that we are learning from the people in Minneapolis. We're just, you have to be willing to put yourself out there. And I think when you see somebody else that you can you see putting themselves out there, that gives you some courage. You know, courage is infectious, and I don't think they count on that, you know. And sometimes people, when people feel they have to be there, like, you know, it's the place to be at,
Yeah.
that's when things are going to change. Like if I'm not there, then I'm missing out on
Yeah, well,
something.
it's, democracy is cool.
Yeah.
It is cool. And so, well, how can people reach you if they want to participate and if they want to do more?
Well, I was thinking about that before. SciAC has I guess, email. Do you want to give your email
Yes, yeah.
address,
uh,
Chris? I think that's a
Staten
good
Island
one. And I'll
Action,
give the Pazzi one too.
Staten Island Action Coalition.com. Send us an email. Go onto our website. Just look for the Staten Island Action Coalition website. And you'll be able to sign on to get our newsletter. And that's what we talked about earlier. Every week, the newsletter comes into your handy dandy inbox and lets you know kind of the issues that are really up front right now, the activities that are going on. And it's all very local, very local. And it gives people a kind of like just an agenda for like what they can do to be active, either visibly out in the street or doing something, from the privacy of their home. So that's one way. And then, of course, the social media. You can like us on social media, on Facebook, Blue Sky, we're all over the place, Instagram, so you can get your messaging that way. Whatever messaging system anybody uses, chances are our organizations are there, and you can find us and we can find you, and hand out the information that we want to share with everybody. So we have to keep those connections going, and they're very vibrant and they're very active.
And Peace Action, I'm sorry, I just want peacesi.org is Peace Action's website that's easy to remember, and you can get alerts from there. And we send out alerts about all the things that are happening that are related to the Staten Island for the People Coalition too.
One of the things that's been really gratifying, we really shouldn't let go. We are so supportive of each other, group by group by group. Most of us knew some of us in one way or another, and now that I know so and so, and now he or she has let me know about so and so, the interconnectedness is very strong, and there's no egos involved in all of this. Everybody is so focused on what the prize is and staying connected and educating, activating, and mobilizing each other, that everybody is pushing and pulling in that same direction. And it's absolutely evident. It's absolutely evident. At the same time, very non-judgy. We are non-judgy. If you can't come out to this Mally Attack Us Monday, it's okay. You're allowed to not do that. We'll see you next time. We'll see you next time. We'll see you next time. And that's really been, I see it everywhere. Sally, I'm sure you're gonna we never hear of anybody saying, "Oh, what's going on?" Absolutely not. Everybody is pushing and pulling in the same direction and supporting each other. And I think that's really been instrumental in the success, and how the coalition has really just hit a nerve with people who are looking for a place to be and a place to stand, and folks that believe and feel the way they do. And it, like Sally says, it really is contagious. It really is contagious. And it's so gratifying.
What
The
about
first couple of times when you come out, it's so gratifying to know that there are so many like-minded people,
what
in
about
your.
Yeah, well, what about the No Kings March? I remember there was a sign-up sheet that I had to do. It was kind of like a Google form type of thing. Is that happening still? Because we'll post it on our show notes.
It's not,
Yeah,
I think it's in process, Chris,
it
because
is.
It's been approved. You go in Indivisible, you go through all these steps, and then they put it out publicly on their
Yeah,
maps
hold
and
that thought
everything.
1 second. I'm sorry, there's a big noise going on.
So our Staten Island No Kings 3 has been approved, but it hasn't got onto that map where you could sign up yet. But as soon as it does, we're going to send it out everywhere, and we'll send it to you so you can promote it also. Yeah, because I was looking for it yesterday, and it's just not up there yet.
Yeah, I'm sorry. I was hearing some like, strange noises out there. Yeah, between like mobilized system and stuff and along those lines, absolutely. So if you're gonna, and you'll find sooner than later that if you go on to like No Kings and you're gonna see find the No Kings event near you, and we're gonna be there. So that apparatus is in the works. They can be a little creaky sometimes, but they're probably creaky because there were so many No Kings marches that are going to be I mean, last week when I saw this site, there were like 600 that were registered so far, and
Oh, great.
that was like a week or two ago. So it's just going to be huge. It's going to be huge.
And there's also one in the city that day too, right?
Yeah, yeah. Like I said earlier, like we really like going up to the first one because the energy was great, but we really want to bring it back home because this is where we live. This is our community, and we really wanted to be part of building out the Staten Island No Kings, and that's why this No Kings 2 was so successful, and No Kings 3 is going to be beyond the beyond.
Excellent.
Guillermo thinks so. So
Yeah. So, well, on that note, thank you, Christine. Thank you, Sally, for coming on the podcast. Excellent conversation. This is the Left in the Forgotten Borough podcast. I'm Andrew Savage.
I'm Nancy Richards, and we hope to see you all on March 28th for the No Kings 3 rally. And if you want any more additional information, you can contact Left in the Forgotten Borough. You can contact Staten Island Peace Action or Staten Island Action Coalition, correct?
Correct.
And
Correct. All right.
check our show notes for all of those places.
Thank you so much for what you two do. It's
Yeah, that's great.
important. Thank you. Thank
Thank
you.
you.
Okay.
Keep the faith, everybody. Keep the faith.
Absolutely.